Welcome back to this latest episode of Japan's Top Business Interviews. I'm your host, Dr. Story, President, Dale Carnegie Tokyo Training Japan, and my special guest today is an old friend of mine, Michael Bobrove, who is really an extraordinary entrepreneur, and his latest venture is called HealthyTOKYO. He's a founder and president, CEO of HealthyTOKYO. We're here in his Daikanyama store, amongst one of 4 outlets he has so far in Tokyo. Today we're going to talk about leading in Japan, your long experience here. Now, you mentioned to me before that you've actually been here since, early 80s, I think you said?
I came here the first time in 82, 83.
This is to live?
I was a student.
As a student. So where were you studying at that time?
I studied at a extremely liberal university called Antioch College, and gave me the foundation for a lot of flexibility that I have today.
Actually. And did they have an exchange program or something?
So they invented the co-op system in the 1800s. It was founded by Horace Mann, who's a famous educator. And all of us going to that university, I believe it's still that way. You spend 6 months in the classroom and 6 months working somewhere. You never really have a summer or other vacation. You're just always doing something.
So why Japan? You could have gone anywhere, I guess.
I was thinking about going overseas for school and only spoke English and thought it would be the UK, most likely. And it ended up that I met a professor who was teaching Japanese. Turns out he was quite a famous guy, a translator for Tanegawa Shuntaro, who's a famous poet. And he encouraged me to go to Japan. He said, "I'll teach you Japanese, don't worry. They'll tell you you'll never speak Japanese properly, but I'll make sure you do." And he was right. He gave me the confidence, and also the way he taught was in a way that just instilled confidence. And as you know, in those days, you'd come here and people would tell you, you'll never speak Japanese properly because your tongue is not, the right shape or whatever.
Yeah, I think they were right regarding mine, but anyway, it didn't apply to you, fortunately, so that was good. So how long did you spend that first time?
So I came over the first time for 6 months. That was extended to 9 months. That was my first trip to Japan. And then I did everything I could to get back here, doing different types of co-ops. And then I went on to graduate school and I studied Japanese, but I went for my MBA, International Management and Marketing. And I studied Japanese at the graduate level at the Monterey Institute in California. And then I came back to Japan in '90, and I've been here ever since. So,
very soon. I got here in '79, and then went back in '83, came back '84, then came back again in 1992. So we're pretty close in our matching there, that period of time. And so when you came back in 1990, what were you doing at that time?
So right before that, actually, before I went to graduate school, I worked in a Japanese psychiatric hospital for a couple of years. Here in Japan.
Oh, okay.
And I was working to help them with a halfway house. I had studied psych undergraduate and thought I would be going on to get my PhD and become a clinical psychologist. And did work with a lot of different populations, but I ended up combining my education with my love of Japan. I ended up in a Japanese hospital. And I worked there for a couple of years. Then I went back and really considered what would I like to do. And then I ended up going to graduate school and coming back. In '90, I joined Nihon Sharing, which is now part of Bayer, the pharmaceutical company. Sharing was a big pharmaceutical company as well, a historic pharmaceutical company in Germany. Later got acquired by Bayer. But I had a large part of my career in pharmaceuticals, business development, strategic planning, and then went on to work in med device after that. Also part of the Sharing Bayer Group.
And you actually became president of one of the subsidiaries at one point, is that right?
So when I was working in business development, we acquired a company called Medrad, which was located in Pittsburgh, and they are the experts in injection systems for contrast media. So when you get a CT or an MRI, they inject what a lot of people call a dye. And these guys invented the equipment that actually injects that into you for an angiography or some other CT or MRI. So they were working with agent here in Japan, and I ended up helping to get that company acquired. And then after that, they said, why don't you become the president here in Japan? And I had to build the operation. So I spent about 14 years building that company here in Japan.
So when you were in your first role, business development, presumably you're a producer. You're not actually running a section or a team at that stage, or were you doing that in that early stage?
No, I joined a team, and I had a very influential a guy who ended up being very influential for me, named Toda. He was a doctor, and he was a chemist actually, who had left. He studied at Kyoto University, and he had done a bunch of things. He lived in Germany, and then he came back and worked for Schering. And became my boss in business development. He had been in the labs and then went into business development. So he made a big transition. And I worked under him for a couple of years. And then I was asked to they were making a new department, which was attached to the president. My first job was attached to they had different divisions and was attached to the pharmaceutical division. And then they got rid of some of the other operations and they consolidated. And then the president asked me to run his office, and that was strategic planning and the office of the board and intellectual properties and all that stuff.
So actually, the sort of leading of an actual team, I guess, really started when you took over as the president of Medrak and built.
No, the leading of a team started when I became the head of this operation underneath the president.
Okay.
And I had a number of employees that were reporting to me, and we also did a huge project, which we ended up doing with Boston Consulting at the time, which was to revamp the sales and marketing group. And in a pharma company, that's like most of the company, right? So they put me in charge of this project. I was a young guy in my early 30s, and they put me in charge of, basically revamping the entire organization. Wow. So I worked with Boston, and they gave me absolute leeway to do whatever I needed to do. I could, bring in whoever I needed in the team and do whatever I needed. So that was really where I started leading people.
You've done your MBA.
Yeah.
So you had that sort of classic Western training in how to do everything, right? Yeah. But now you're leading a Japanese team. What was the contrast? The things you realized, okay, I'm in Japan, but this is not going to quite fit, or I've got to tweak this, or I can't use that, or what were the things you discovered were challenging about leading a Japanese team in that first instance?
So, well, there were a couple things. So a lot of discussions, and I've listened to some of your podcasts, and I know you're always pushing for like the differences with Japan.
I am, yeah.
But I have to tell you that the older I get and the longer I'm here in Japan, the more I realize that people are people. Right. There are some subtle differences, but some of the things that I had to deal with initially were things that you deal with in every country, I guess. I can't really contrast it to working in the US because I don't have that much experience working in the United States. Right. Of course, growing up American and interacting, there's definitely a different way to interact. You don't spill it all at once, and you don't being forceful is not the way to get people to follow you. So especially in this country, being clear and getting people to rally around specific objectives or specific goals and specific purpose, that works well in Japan. The first challenge I had there was, I mentioned this guy, Dr. Toda, who was my boss. Well, when they made this new operation, the president decided that I was going to be the boss and wanted Dr. Toda in the group. So the guy and this guy was a good 10 to 15 years older than I am. And he ended up, we got along well, and he was an unusual guy that he could handle that, and I could handle that, and we did well together actually. Division of roles as you learn to do. Big differences. I can't really compare it. I can just tell you that there were a lot of challenges, especially in Schering had been around for 40 years in Japan, right? And it was essentially a Japanese company to a large degree. So, and then you get into the sales and marketing operations. Marketing in Japan, there's a whole nother podcast we could do about that. Yes. But the sales organization is so traditional in Japan, right? Especially the old pharma organizations. So here comes this young American guy having to go and with absolute authority to, at the end of the day, make decisions on who was going to go up and who was going to go down. And it was an interesting process. I think that my work in the psych hospital, believe it or not, gave me some grounding on what people were valuing in Japan. This kind of shame of showing your weaknesses. The people that were hospitalized, the families never wanted anyone to know about that, right? There's still some of that in Japan, but it's less, I think, than maybe it used to be. So shaming people or calling them out, as you know, in Japan is just something you don't want to do. So that was something I learned very early on. Listening to the group and spending a lot of time with them, probably more time than you would spend in a Western organization. That I think that probably still holds true today.
And the Medtran, when you took over Medtran, did they have an actual operation on the ground here, or you had to start it from scratch?
So Medrad, when we acquired the company, they were working with a distributor, and we helped to set up a small office here, not knowing at all that I would ever be the guy running that operation. We set up this office, and Schering actually had plans for me to go run an operation in Thailand or Taiwan, is what they were looking at. And actually run the company or run a higher level organization. And this little company said to me, "Hey, Mike, you want to come work? You want to come be the president here?" And when I went and talked to my boss at the time, who I got along well with, but was definitely a strong personality and a good leader, he said, quote, "Are you fucking crazy?" Don't know if you put that in the podcast, but anyway.
I'll have to beat that up.
But that, to actually quote him, that's what he told me. So it took me a while before I could, get past that. And I had to give it a lot of thought. What did I want to do? Did I want to go on this, a smaller organization and build it, and in Japan, or did I want to go run a bigger organization outside in a different country that I didn't know, different culture and all that stuff? And I decided that
it's a difficult decision.
It was a very difficult decision. It took me a long time to decide, especially with the former president saying, "Are you crazy? You're going to go to this little company and we have big plans for you," kind of thing. But I think I made the right choice.
And so when you took over, you're basically moving the distribution away from the existing organization in Japan to run it yourself. So that means you've got to recruit people, train people, expand it. There's a huge amount of work in that, right? Yeah. So how many people did you get it up to in the end?
In the end, we had about 100 people, something like that. In the beginning, I think when I joined, there were 3 or 4 people.
The good thing about that, though, is they're your 100 people.
Yeah. That's
as opposed to if you'd gone to Taiwan or someone else, there's somebody else's 100 people or whatever it might be, which is a bit different. So I guess at that stage, what are we talking, 90s now, right? So I guess hiring people, pharma industry, it's a pretty big industry, well established. I suppose hiring people wasn't that difficult, or was it?
So I left there in 2011, I guess, something like that. Up until that time, in the earlier days, joining a foreign company was not something that your average Japanese person wanted to do.
No.
Now it's a bit different, right? The foreign companies generally pay more, and there are more internationally minded people in Japan. So people look at it as an opportunity to join companies, foreign companies. At that time, you kind of had to, you had plenty of people apply, but a lot of them were maybe really good at English. I had already was speaking Japanese fairly decently in the early days. But so the English there was nothing enamoring about somebody who spoke English to me. It was about what they could do. So you'd find a lot of people who spoke English and really couldn't do very much. And then you'd find other people who were just a little different and wanted to make a difference in the type of work. They didn't want to join Japan Incorporated. They wanted to join something else. And we weren't Medrad was not a giant company to begin with. When I joined, I think maybe the whole company had like 700 people or something like that.
Okay, right.
Later on grew to be quite much larger. So it wasn't that big of a company. So it was a very nice atmosphere to nurture other employees and to be nurtured myself, and how to really motivate people and do a lot of the things that we did there. Medrad was an amazing amazing company, amazing experience. And that's why I stayed with them so long.
How did you motivate people? Like, for example, the good thing is you're choosing them, you're hiring them.
Yeah.
You've got control over the quality of people coming in. They're your people.
Yeah.
Presumably you've got training for them because probably they're not trained enough, or they need to be trained on the product or the solutions or whatever.
Yeah.
But what about engaging the people, getting them behind the plan, and selling them the dream, really? Because it's like, hey, we're going to take this over from the distributor. We're going to build it ourselves. We're going to be big. You'll be part of that. How did you go about motivating people who want to be part of that?
So, I think leading is really a lot about rallying people around a purpose, and then, motivating them with whatever motivates them. So, you see as time has gone on that a lot of people are not motivated only by money, right?
No.
In the earlier days, the 90s, in the 2000s, if you gave enough money and enough bonuses, I think people were motivated just by the money that they got. And Japan was kind of oriented that way, and the world was kind of oriented that way. And things have changed now. We can talk more about that a little later.
Well, you might have studied Herzberg on motivation. He says that money's a hygiene factor. It's a given. Right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not a differentiator.
Yeah.
So that research was done a long time ago. So it's been there, but maybe we've given it too much attention.
We've given it too much attention.
We've said, the money will do the trick. The money will make the difference, but maybe not.
I mean, COVID is, it's brought all that to light, right?
Hasn't it? Yeah.
The things we can spend hours talking about how, even in my business now, how it's changed from 3 years ago. The type of employees and the attitude of employees has changed a lot here in Japan, worldwide, I guess, as well. But as far as motivating employees at that time, Medred had something that I've stolen from shamelessly throughout my career, and that is the 5 evergreen goals. And these goals truly cascaded throughout the organization. So the company would start with 5 goals, and so the 5 goals are, employee satisfaction, customer satisfaction, profitability and sales, productivity and efficiency, and growing the company. And these 5 goals, underneath of these 5 goals, we always had specifics that were related to whatever organization was in the cascade of the organization.
So is this separate from vision, mission, values? It's like, or is that replaced the vision, mission?
No, they still had a vision and a mission, but that was...
These are goals then?
This is how to set your objectives for people and to get them to buy into what's important, and not only to just create them, a top-down approach to objectives, and it doesn't drive people. Some people, but most people, no. So it's an arduous process to put together the objectives that are required underneath of these goals. So I use this today. As a matter of fact, and this is January, the first thing I did when I got into the vacation time at the end of the year was think about and list up all of the objectives that I wanted to do for our company here for HealthyTOKYO. And then underneath of these 5, we call them the evergreen goals. And then I ran that past the management team and had the management team adjust them. I wasn't too far off. I mean, we all know what we want to achieve as far as sales are concerned, but there's some things in there that they don't know about in the beginning. Like there's some products that I would like to launch. We're not a giant company, so there's some things that I have in my head that I haven't gotten out. So we have a lot of discussion about what we're going to do that year, and then the objectives are set underneath these evergreen goals. What happens then is that they cascade. So now I hand those goals to my retail manager, who's in charge of all of our shops. And and I also prepared some draft goals for him under that, some things that I'd like to see, but they're not fixed. And I hand them to him, and then I say, okay, can you please review them, change them, propose what you'd like to do? So now he's been involved in creating his objectives. There's one golden rule, is that once we set them, they are fixed. So for example, if COVID comes and we can't make our sales and we're all working according to bonuses, according to those objectives, well, we're not going to get them, and we're not going to change it. There is a little leeway at the end to say, okay, we had some really big challenges, but we did this and we overcame them, so we're going to reward in that way. But fixing them and being consequential about your objectives is really important. And this worked. So everyone told me at the time in Japan, this will not work. This will not work. You cannot get everybody involved in making the objectives. Tell them what to do. They're going to do it. And there are some people that like to be told what to do. There are some people that, I learned it early on when I was in high school. I worked for a part-time job. I worked in a cosmetics factory. You box shampoo, lines coming down, you have boxes, you take the shampoo off the line, put it in a box. And the people that were working there full-time for years and years and years loved that kind of work. They liked being on the clock, doing what they needed to do, getting it done. When the whistle rang at 5 o'clock, they were out, and they were happy with that. That was, so I learned early on, some people like that, but the people you're working with generally in pharma or medical device, that's not the case. These are more advanced people. They have higher aspirations, let's say. Not that one's better than the other.
We're giving a lot of capability there for people to tweak it, to put their own mark on it, have a sense of ownership. So one of the contributors to innovation is feeling engaged. Like if you don't care about the mousetrap of the company, you don't care if you make it better, right?
That's right.
Who cares, right?
That's right.
But you're giving them some sense of ownership into the process. Did you come up, or have you come up with any things that, and this could be Metron or any of the jobs you had after, we'll talk about those in a bit later, but things you've seen work in terms of getting people to be creative and innovative about coming up with fresh ideas?
Creating a safe space in Japan for that to be done. I think that's necessary. So to be able to sit down and say, look, we're all in the same boat. What doesn't work in Japan, which often happens, is someone comes over in a foreign company anyway. Someone comes over and says, okay, here are the objectives. We're gonna do this. And people say, well, that's not gonna work here. For whatever reason. There are a lot of differences in the way the market runs here versus other places. That we can talk about also a little bit later. But for whatever reason, but they push it through, and everybody's sitting there and going, I'm not gonna say anything. I said it. We kind of said it. We kind of let you know in our own way, but it's not gonna work. And they don't have a safe space to communicate to that person unless they're a Japan hand, let's say, and they know how to sit back and let the people tell them what, absorb what people are trying to say, whether directly or indirectly. And so that is something that I think at the end of the day is necessary, to give a safe space for people to say whatever they want. And, like in the process of doing objectives, they can say whatever they want. There's something I learned early on too, when you're doing something like that, a brainstorm or anything else, there's no good and bad. It's just put it out there. We'll assess it later. Just get it out there. We'll talk about it later, but here's your opportunity to say anything you want, to do anything you want, So, and it takes time. It's not like they pick it up. Anybody in any country is going to pick it up right away. It takes time to build that trust and so forth. So,
I think also in Japan, my experience is that if I put up some innovation, some idea, or some suggestion, in their mind, one of their key roles is sort of the black hat aspect, of looking at what could go wrong and thinking through the consequences of failure or mistakes or damage to the organization. So what you get initially when you put up your genius, foreign leader idea is all this pushback. And the first time that happens is like, what's going on here? Like, why are you all so negative? But then you start to realize they're not negative. They're just being accountable in their mind to give you an appraisal of some things that they are concerned about that you may or may not have thought about. And it's not negativity, it's just giving a bit of a filter on your idea for their reality that they understand, and not to get upset and start, crushing people who oppose your idea,
right,
thinking you've got a rebellion on your hands. They're not rebelling, they're just giving you a perspective and context about things you may not know or may not have thought about. So in terms of that safe environment, I mean, one of the things there is how we handle mistakes. And so, as I often mention in this podcast, I had a boss who used to just fillet ideas with a big hocho as they came up. And they weren't any good, or he didn't like them, he just crucify them on the spot.
Yeah.
And so that just killed off all the innovation.
Yeah.
And also handling mistakes, because that innovation process is messy. There's bound to be some problems. There's bound to be things that don't work initially. And so there's got to be a tolerance. So how do you think about mistakes, and how do you think about encouraging people to take risks and try stuff? I don't think fail fast is necessarily a good mantra for every industry. It might be okay in Silicon Valley. I don't think I want to fail fast necessarily. But what do you think? How's this going to work?
So I think that, again, a safe environment is what's necessary. So I value personally as a manager, as a owner, as a leader, whatever you want to call it, I value integrity. I value people that are honest, and I value people that are reliable. And that, once you have that and people understand that, the ones that aren't, they drop out. The ones that are, they stay in. And people, if someone has integrity, if they make a mistake, it's very easy to speak with them and say, look, so you have to select, you have to get that, it takes time. It takes time to build that organization where you have these people that are, you can create a trusting environment. When you have a mistake, there are many times where you don't want to hang that out in front of the entire organization. There are some times where you want to let people know that we didn't succeed. I really believe in keeping a positive attitude on everything. So I try to put everything in the positive. Japan tends to put things in the negative, as you just mentioned, talking about what you can't do. That's common in Japan. You put up an idea and you put it up an idea in front of 10 people and 9 of them are going to tell you why it can't be done. And then as you talk it through, they go, well, as you start to say, well, really, it's okay. We can challenge that. Let's try that. Okay, if you don't think it can be done, I accept that, but can we try it like this? But when there's a big mistake that's visible to the organization, you have to accept it like you do anything else. So if you don't make your sales number, or you're not successful with a particular product, then you had an objective to do that as an organization. And that was the responsibility. It's the responsibility of everybody in some way, but the responsibility of a particular person, everyone knows. So the way to do it is to, be gentle about it. You don't need to crucify anybody. I learned that also. They have a saying, Hanmen Kyoshi in Japanese, right? Hanmen Kyoshi, the
teacher by negative example.
Right, the teacher who teaches you what not to do, right? So I've had some of those colleagues or bosses in the past, and you learn, they're not all bad in general. They're generally very strong leaders, but they are too domineering, and so that creates problems. I come from New Jersey. I don't know if you've ever been there. I'm from outside of Philadelphia, and it's a pretty strong. I still sometimes I'm surprised, but I come from an area where people just speak their mind. New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia is really, people are well known for speaking their mind, and I live in a country that people don't speak their mind. So
exactly.
So that's something I've worked on myself for many years on, still being who I am and still, letting people know what I think, but being gentle and trying to make it happen in the right way. Yeah.
If you want to be successful as a leader, do the Leadership Training for Managers course. All companies need people who can both manage and lead. Leading people screams out for real skills in communication, dealing with all different types of people, being excellent at innovation, planning, delegation, handling mistakes, doing performance reviews really well, and inspiring and motivating the team. Do the Leadership Training for Managers course now in either Japanese or English. Are you doing business with Japan? Do you really know how things work? Japan Business Mastery provides the answers. Do you have the right networks and know how to create them? Do you know how to get on the same wavelength with Japanese buyers? Do you know what being trustworthy looks like from the Japanese perspective? Japan Business Mastery is based on more than 30 years' experience in Japan and will become your go-to guide. Want to succeed in Japan? Buy Japan Business Mastery now. So in terms of, if you've got the engagement, if you're encouraging people to contribute, if you're accepting that sometimes the messiness of innovation is one of the costs of having progress, it tends to build a lot of trust, I think. And you built an organization from basically 3 to 100 people, right? So what have you found worked or works well even today, then or now, in terms of building trust with people?
So maybe I ought to talk a little bit about what I'm doing now.
Yeah. Talk about CBD and what's going on here.
So in 2011, well, we already discussed it. I worked very hard on building Medrad into this decent organization in Japan. We got acquired by Bayer, and I worked with Bayer, and I became the head of radiology as well as working. We're still running Medrad at the time.
You got double salary, by the way.
Oh yeah, double salary. Yeah, and I realized that my passion was in building and working with people that I liked, and I decided that I was going to leave corporate. Mm-hmm. I was not the product of a fallout of an integration or anything like that. Mm-hmm. They asked me to stay. They really said, Mike, we have other, if you don't like this job, we have other jobs. Mm-hmm. And I said, it's not that I don't like the job. It's not that I don't like the company. Mm-hmm. It's just that I took stock of myself. Coming back to Dr. Toda, who at 50 years old walked in one day and said, I'm going to become a patent attorney in Japan.
Wow.
Okay. I just told you.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a big
going to become a patent attorney.
Right.
And he told me that he had a professor in Kyoto University that told him, you need to rebirth yourself 3 times. He was a chemist, went into business, and now he was going to be a patent attorney. You know that to become a patent attorney, I don't know what the numbers are, but it's like 10,000 people take the exam and like 300 pass or something like that, right? So super smart guy. And we all said, okay, if you think you're going to do it. Took him 3 years. He became a patent attorney. Mm-hmm. So I was really taking stock of myself at the time. I also had an unhappy marriage, and I decided to leave my marriage as well. And it took a lot of soul searching and thinking. And during that time, I really thought, well, who am I? What do I want to do? And what really motivates me? And what can I contribute? I learned this from Medrad about contributing, selling medical devices that save lives and screen people for all kinds of diseases.
That's a big why. It's a very big why.
Yeah.
What you're doing, isn't it?
Yeah. So, okay, so what am I going to do? What really motivates me? What do I want to do? And what I realized, what motivates me is the build, the journey, the growing of people, the interaction with people, learning from. It's not all about me teaching anybody. I learned so much from the people that I work with. Mm-hmm. And so I said, okay, I'm going to make the jump. I'm going to become an entrepreneur. And I was entrepreneurial always. I mean, I built a company.
You're an entrepreneur.
I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to become an entrepreneur. What am I going to do? Mm-hmm. And at that time, Japan was talking about medical tourism. Mm-hmm. This is when you travel across borders for medical care. Yep. And Japan was going to become a big player. Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, Korea, they were all doing this kind of thing. And Japan's going to do it. So I thought, well, who better than me? I know lots of doctors. Yeah. And there was one thing I did not know. I did not know much about IT. I didn't know about how the web worked, really. Mm-hmm. I said, okay, this is one of my things. I really need to know how the web works. So I had all these criteria, and I said, okay, I'm going to get involved in medical tourism. Mm-hmm. And I started studying it, attending conferences. Within 2 years, I was actually lecturing on, Japanese medical tourism in Malaysia and some other place, Korea.
Wow, okay.
And doing this kind of thing. So I got into medical tourism. We built a website that was all about medical tourism in 5 countries, the countries I just mentioned in Asia, including Japan. We started searching out doctors in Japan that would be willing to take foreign patients. And then we had a website that was highlighting them, and then we get patients and introduce them to the various doctors. So we started building on this, and that built, and I was traveling a lot in Asia, and I decided, Japan, I need to focus on Japan. So we shut down the other areas. We focused on Japan, and we expanded it from not just medical, but to also health and wellness. Mm-hmm. And that was the birth of kind of the start of where we started, where we are today. And as we built a following, and we started getting involved with products. Well, if we have people that are interested in health and wellness, and we're highlighting gyms and spas and medical facilities and guiding people, particularly English speakers, to these places, why not sell products? So we started, getting into some other healthy products. And we had at one time 1,000 products drop ship on this website.
Wow.
And then we took a look at that and said, we've expanded maybe a little bit. It's a little bit too wide. And what have we learned, and what are we good at? And along comes, well, we actually started with the branding. We learned a lot about branding in Japan, a lot about distribution. We imported some other products like a cup oatmeal that we put natural Lawson or ice cream. And don't, by the way, never deal with frozen products in Japan.
Okay.
And so we started doing all this stuff. And one day I learned about CBD.
Well, CBD in Australian terms means Central Business District. So
That's right.
what does CBD mean for the people who don't know, like me?
Yeah, so CBD is cannabidiol, which is one of the over 100 substances contained in the hemp plant.
So what is it again? It's
Cannabidiol.
cannabidiol.
Yes.
Okay.
And it is a type of cannabinoid. There are many cannabinoids inside of the hemp plant. Mm-hmm. One of them being THC, which is extremely illegal in Japan and is what's in marijuana and makes you high, which is becoming legal in so many other countries, but Japan not yet. CBD is a component that is known to be an anti-inflammatory. It's known to help with stress. It's known to be, as a topical, it can help with swelling. A lot of people take it before sleep. It relaxes your body before you go to sleep.
So it's legal.
And it's legal in Japan. When we started with this, we're a pioneer in this business, in CBD. And it came along, and being American, I was kind of familiar with its older brother, and I didn't believe that this one substance in the hemp plant could do anything. And I got a hold of some and I tried it, and I thought, wow, there's no high to CBD. It's a relaxation. I would liken it to coming out of the onsen. You come out of an onsen and you just feel like, wow, relax. Your shoulders drop and it's like that. And I also, doing what I do, have trouble sleeping sometimes, and it's very good it's been a savior for many people when it comes to anxiety.
So
and
non-addictive?
sleep. Non-addictive. You don't have to take it every day. You just take it when you need it or you want it. So when we started, everyone thought we're crazy. Cannabis in Japan, my God. And there was a loophole in the law that allowed for it to be here as long as it was made from the stalk or the seed of the plant. There's not a lot of CBD in the seed, so it has to be made from the stalk. Very difficult process. Our CBD is made from that. And when we started, we started with another company together, and there was one other company I think that was starting. It was really in the very beginning. So we launched our first branded CBD product in 2016. And in 2018, we didn't have shops at the time. It was all online. Again, having learned all this stuff about how to do stuff online in 2008 and how to brand and how to do all these things. And in 2018, someone approached us who we had done a project for. We did a lot of projects, and we'd done a project for, and said, would you like to open up a shop in Haneda Airport? And we said, okay, what kind of shop? And they said, well, we need a restaurant. And so they knew us from the health and wellness side, right? And we said, okay, here's a good opportunity for us to really launch our brand. One of the most traveled airports in the world. It ranges between 3 and 6 or something, the top airports in the world, travel. So we got together with a vegan restaurant that we were highlighting in our, on our website at the time. And we said, how about we do a joint project in the airport? They said, sure. So we had a 5149 agreement, and we started moving forward. And they were to provide all the recipes and the food and the people, because that's what they did. And we were to provide the branding and the CBD and all this other stuff. And 7 weeks before the opening, they dropped out.
Oh, ouch.
So half the money we had to find, and we had no people. We had to find all the people. We had no recipes. We had to find all the recipes. And within 7 weeks, we managed to open up the shop.
Wow.
Using an outside vegan baker, and I'm an amateur chef, so I came up with some ideas, and then I brought them over to some professionals, and they tweaked them, and we got something out there. And now you fast forward, we have very successful business in Haneda, although during COVID it was a little tough. And we ended up opening up, so it's the first CBD Senmonten, so the first CBD specialty shop in Harajuku, and then in Daikanyama. And we have a central kitchen in Edogawa where we produce CBD oil products, and we produce all of our edibles, all vegan food, all made by us. And so that's the journey, the pivoting from all these things. And it was really about taking stock with what I like to do, and recognizing at certain points that there were things we should change. And we're still doing that all the time. We're still changing.
We were on the topic of trust. So
Yes.
How does this fit into that topic of trust? Because you've gone down a particular road, and then it's been a train wreck initially, and then you've had to scramble and make it work. So thinking about building trust in Japan, what have you discovered through this process?
So I can say this, I think it's true everywhere, but I think the thing that has worked for me, and I still have challenges. We have 40 people in our company right now. We have, including all the part-timers that are working in our shops and so forth. And we still have challenges every day. That's what it's all about. But the one consistent thing that I think is important is to roll up your sleeves with your people. If you sit and if you sit and say, "Hey guys, this is what you need to do.
Yeah.
I'm going away. I'll be back. Just let me know how the money flows in, and let me know how you succeeded or failed. Just let me know." It won't work. So I'm sure that our employees know that I work hard, and that the other managers in this company work hard, that we're in the boat together. That's number one. The other thing, and I learned this when I was doing med device, you talk to the sales guys in Japan, it's very often that it's about product features, not about the ancillary aspects, right? When you do sales. So these guys would come in and go, "Oh, but company X, they have this gizmo that does this, and we don't have that, so we can't sell." And I'd say, "Well, we have this gizmo, and we have this gizmo. Well, in Japan, they don't want that gizmo." Okay, can you show me? Yeah, okay, I get it. They don't want that gizmo, but we still have history and super great quality products and all the other things. So what I learned is, and I always preach this, is be the real thing. Do the hard work, right? I mean, it sounds stupid, but to be successful, do the hard work. So all of the products we sell here, you can test any product we have. It says 2,400 milligrams of broad spectrum CBD with no THC. You can bring that to a lab, and I guarantee it will be the right amount. And I guarantee there will be no problem with it. Probably the highest quality product you can get. The food behind me is all vegan. It's all 100% natural, 100% vegan. We go to great lengths to make sure we choose our sugar and everything else so it doesn't have any animal products. So our staff, whether they have stayed with us or they've left, there's one consistent thing. They all love our products. So when a customer walks in here or in any of our other shops or buys online, if they're interacting with anybody from our company, our people believe in what we sell because it's real, because they know we're not cheating. And I will never cheat. I think that's the way to build a long-term successful business. You can make a lot of money. There are a lot of CBD companies that are just dropping price and selling crap and this kind of thing. But building a real company requires the hard work. And so I always talk about the honmono no kaisha, the real
integrity,
the real company.
And this is the cutting edge of that, isn't it? I mean, you can walk the talk on what you say, and sometimes things will come up, and you might make more money if you do it this way.
Yeah.
But it doesn't fit in with the integrity that you're telling everyone the company represents. And so you as a leader, you've got to say, well, yeah, we could do that, but we're not going to do that. We're going to make less money, but we're going to keep our integrity. And I think people need to see that and hear that. It comes up for us sometimes with pricing. Overseas, other franchises might have a different pricing. It might be higher than ours in Japan for the same product.
Yeah.
And we could charge that client more, but we don't, because this is our pricing to Japan, and every client gets the same pricing. even though we could charge more, we're not going to do that. My staff, well, we give you more money. Well, no, we're not doing that. So I have to lead them and say, no, we're going to be fair to everyone. We're going to have integrity here. We're not going to take more money. We're going to charge them a lower price and be consistent. And you have to show them that, because they test you. They test you on things. They think they're trying to do better for the company, make more money, or shortcut, or do this or do that. But opportunity cost is wide, and also the integrity cost is wide. And what's the long term? What do we stand for? What's our why here?
That's right.
And are we actually lining up with the why? So
well, I mean, why did I start this company if I'm going to, do a bunch of, shady things? And I'll give you a good example. During the COVID, the heart of the COVID crisis, there were a lot of subsidies, and I could have tweaked the times we were open, for example, and we probably lost a good 100 million yen in possible subsidies. If I would have just said we're open later, or said we were open later than we were, but we didn't do it. And because even if you could get away with it, which I wouldn't try to, but even if you could, the people around me in my company, they would look at me and say, well, okay, great. Desperate situations call for desperate action, or however it's said, but we're not that desperate. And we managed to get through COVID. We actually built one shop unknowingly during COVID, and two knowing. We built our 2 shops during COVID, this one, and we built our central kitchen and shop during COVID. And we managed to get through it. And now we're the better for it, right? Now we're being asked to go into the big, Japan incorporated type shopping areas, and no one else is being asked to do that, because the customers recognize the quality and recognize our integrity over time. Because even if an employee doesn't like to work here or didn't like the company for some reason, they're going out there and still saying, man, those products are good, and those guys are really working hard.
What's the culture you've built here? I mean, you've been in big organizations which bring a sort of headquarter culture, and then you have the local version of that. But in this case, you've built it from the ground up. You had your sort of medical tourism business, then you sort of moved across into this. So you've had an experience of building companies here and establishing cultures. So what have you found works well for building culture?
Well, it's constantly evolving, right? So, your company is of course, I set some of the parameters for who we want to be or where we want to go. But as in Japan, I don't remember who said it, but hito ga mokesasite kureru, it's your employees, it's the people that mokesasite kureru, to make you rich would be the direct translation, or make money for you. But it's the people that make it happen, right? I mean, I can stand and scream all day long, and it's not gonna. Some people will maybe do what they need to do, but it's the people that make it happen. So, building a culture, it's the combination of the people who are participating in that environment, right? The people that are in your community. The community now being HealthyTOKYO. The people in this company are the people that build the culture. My business partner, David, who you met earlier today, he's from Sweden, from the countryside, super smart guy, and also the highest integrity. So there's nothing we have discussions about what we're going to do, and it's like, well, we can't do that. Okay, why? And we go back and forth. And that's permeating through our management. We're still building. We're just coming out of COVID, right? So. Well, we still have it, but I mean, we're coming out. We're not really coming out, but from the economic impact that we've had, the severe impact that we've had. From our point of view, we've come out to some degree because the airport is now rocking, functioning again. But the culture built around, you set these, and I know this from building the other organization with Medred, building the Medred organization, that in the early days you set the ethos, you set the environment for what that company is going to be. So if anyone would propose that we make a product that's not good in this company, the other people in the company go, what do you mean? That's not what we do. We make good products. We can't make cheap, crappy products. That's not us, So It's constantly evolving. I don't know. It's a combination of a million things that go into to the culture, but a lot of things we talked about today, I guess, is the objectives and the products and the quality and rolling up your sleeves and doing those things together with people.
So if someone was being sent to Japan by their organization, they don't speak Japanese, they don't know Japan, but maybe they know their company and they know their product, whatever, very well, their service very well. Okay, you go and run the organization in Japan. What advice would you give them?
Find a couple of people that you can trust in your organization. And the way to find them, would be, let's say, coming over for a subsidiary or something like that. Find a few people that you can trust in the organization and listen greatly to them. Still trust your own compass on, it's not that different. I did a presentation at UCLA once, and I held up a big picture of a screw.
Yeah.
And I said, this happens in Japan too.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a myth that, Japanese business relationships are for life, and it's a myth. I'm sorry. There are some like that, but there are some like that in every country. I don't believe it. I've seen, we've had people, shamelessly try to copy our trademarks or other stuff. I mean, that's one of the things, or some of the other, some other things that you really need to be careful. So you can be screwed here just like you can anywhere else. So you need to have your compass of, your values, and you need to look at somebody, and when they're kind of blowing smoke, you need to be able to say, well, this guy maybe not, this woman maybe not. So first thing would be really to take the time to listen to your people before you start throwing out a lot of direction to people. I always believe when you get into a new organization or new position that you should strike while the iron's hot. I think over time, if you don't at least put in a few key directions that you want to go, or a few key objectives that you want to achieve in the early days, you will not have a chance to recover, because people will, not ever, but most likely it will be harder to recover, because people will look at you and say, well, why are you suddenly giving me some goals? I didn't really understand where you were coming from before. Of course, you risk, and I also find this with myself, that if you put out something, sometimes people go, well, they're kind of taken aback. Well, I don't know if we can do that, and then you go through the process that we talked about, which is talking through it and them understanding what you actually mean. That requires, I think Japan requires a lot of that. A lot of what I actually mean by that is the following, and
because often we're working across languages too. We're working across, maybe their understanding of English is not 100% perfect.
Right.
Our understanding of Japanese is not 100% perfect. So two imperfect language is coming together. It needs a lot of explanation, lots of nuance and subtlety explained, because the understanding is not there necessarily. Right. You've got to actually go a bit deeper in the actual detail of what we're really talking about.
No, that's right. That's right.
And often in writing too, because often people here can read easier than they can listen. And so getting it in writing also seems to make it more concrete. That's
true. It's tough, especially like in an entrepreneurial situation where you got to move really fast. It's tough to sit down with your group. Often, we run 365 days a year, our shops. This year, for the first time, we closed down for the first, second, and third, just in the downtown shops, just to give everybody a break. But generally, we run 365 days a year. So to get the entire company together to talk about anything, even virtually, getting everybody online, you can't do it. So how do you communicate? And we're working on new things. We have a lot of my targets this year are related to setting up e-learning, because our organization is getting bigger, and monthly newsletters from our management team based on the evergreen objectives, evergreen goals that I told you, that I mentioned earlier. So, yeah.
So what else should they do? This new person being sent here, should they learn Japanese? What should they do?
Well, I mean, if you can learn Japanese, that's great. If you plan on being here for any length of time, learn Japanese. It can be done, as my professor Harold Wright in the early days told me. My Japanese is, after all these years of formal study and working and living in Japanese, is good. And that definitely has been a benefit in my ability to manage in this country. And it's not just the language, it's as you know, it's the context of the language, how things are said.
Yep.
And then another thing I would say is that Japanese in general do not see slowness as a sign of weakness or as a negative. We tend to think, well, let's get that done faster.
Let's go.
They, in general, I don't like to say they, but in general, this country takes a lot of time to do stuff. And I'm not always sure that there's a method to the madness. I think that sometimes it just takes a lot of time and it doesn't have to. But as a statement, I can say that people in general spend a lot of time to work on something which could probably be done more efficiently, and that will drive people crazy. A new manager will drive them crazy for sure. Trying to speed everything up. But there are certain things, so pick your battles. Pick your battles, and there's certain things that need to be done, need to be faster.
Yeah, we have a saying in our company that in our business with our size, we have to have a strong sense of urgency. We have to be the speedboat, not the oil tanker. And it took a long time, for people to get the idea that an oil tanker takes a long time to turn around. Speedboat. But that whole idea of where can we go faster? Maybe some things we can't go fast, but where can we go faster?
Pick a few because you can rally the people. And once you get your team humming, I think that Japan probably could be the greatest place when you get people, when you have dedicated people, they're really dedicated. That's been my experience in all these years. And I've kept my relationships with, a lot of particularly the managers that we're in the same team with together over the years. So,
What else would you suggest, Michael? What are some other things I should think about?
I could write a book. I actually have a whole bunch of notes on a book that I'm planning to write one someday.
Good man.
About all the things that that I think are important. I think one of the things is it's not, as I said earlier, it's not always as different as you think. It's not. People are more, especially the past few years with auto translation, where social media and news and everything else. In the old days, if you didn't speak Japanese, you couldn't understand it, and vice versa. If you didn't speak English, you wouldn't understand. Now people are able to really real time understand what's going on, and with that, I think the cycle has become faster. It's easier to communicate. You remember the early days in Japan, everything was Japanese. The train signs were Japanese. The television, I remember, it was a real pleasure to watch the Dirty Dozen on TV with this little bilingual function. I don't know why the Dirty Dozen was so popular in Japan, but every few months that was coming on TV, and to watch it bilingual. They had that little function. You had to have a radio a radio with a separate function. You remember that stuff? So it's so different now. It's so much easier to navigate than it was. But I think not to belittle a lot of the Japanophiles who have written about all the differences. I think there's, especially now, I mentioned a few of these things, but the partner for life and all Japanese companies have the highest integrity, and it's not true. There are good companies in Japan, and there are really crappy companies in Japan. There are fast companies in Japan. There are slow companies in Japan. I think it is true. What everyone will tell you is that yes doesn't mean yes. So you really have to read through when you're doing sales and you're contacting a client and they're telling you, well, not yet. We're still working on so-and-so, and you call them up and then not yet. That means no.
Yeah.
That's, in the West in general, not just the West, but other parts of Asia too, you call up, or even Osaka, which is a place which has a very different business style. You can read pretty quickly that somebody doesn't want to do whatever you're proposing or doesn't want to.
What I like about Osaka is it's yes or no. Generally, much quicker there. It's clearer.
It is.
We're interested. We're not interested. I like that. Tokyo, it's, as you say, it can be like a definite maybe.
A definite maybe.
That's not much help.
And also there's also a lot of, like in our business, every day someone comes to this shop or one of our other shops to, for reconnaissance. They want information because they want to build their own business or whatever. We're happy to. I've started a nonprofit. It's for the ethical advancement of the industrial cannabis industry in Japan. It's called Magic, MAJIC.jp. And we're working with ethical companies to promote the industry. So I don't mind when people come in, but you get a lot of people that are just crafty, and I see that. I saw that when we did Med Device, and it's not just because we work with a product that's made from hemp. So yeah.
What's your definition of leadership?
I would say it's rallying people around a joint purpose, and then motivating them with whatever motivates them. We talked about money not being as much of a motivator as it used to be in this country. And when I say joint purpose, it's not just the joint products. It's not just the great products you have, where it's a purpose. We have a lot of people believe in health and wellness, and that we're doing something great for the world and doing something great for Japan. We provide CBD and vegan food that is pretty good for you. This stuff's good for you. You can sell it. It's not like selling tobacco. It's not like selling processed sweets, or it's not gambling. There's so many things that our people believe in, and so we get these people, our employees. We get people that are really into health and wellness, working out, supplements or other things, and you start to create a group that believes in the mission, the purpose that you have. I don't sit out there all day long going, "Here's the mission." You just have to show the mission. Really, you have to show it.
Well, it's been great, Michael.
Hey, thank you.
Very much.
Yeah, thank you.
It's been great. So please join us again for our next episode of Japan's top business interviews.